The hottest of the year so far, and tomorrow will be another hot day with plenty of sunshine in the picture. Our UV index is in that extreme range with a burn time of about 10 minutes, so make sure you have the hat, the sunglasses, and the sunscreen. If you are outside, make sure to stay hydrated and limit your time outdoors. Otherwise, again, just make sure to practice heat safety by doing things like wearing light colors. I'll tell you more of what you can expect tomorrow and for the rest of the week in just a few. Local 33 News at 10 starts right now.
Jasmine, thank you. Tonight, the changes are big amid big COVID-19 numbers. What Governor John Bel Edwards is mandating by executive order and when it goes into effect.
And why protesters in Donaldsonville were taking a stand against two kinds of viruses today. And we begin tonight with one of those, a reference to anyway, wearing masks in public. That will no longer be a choice in Louisiana. That was the message from our governor today as Louisiana becomes now the latest state to mandate them. And that mandate takes effect Monday, and it comes after 2 straight days of more than 2,000 known coronavirus cases. Governor John Bel Edwards announcing that move at a rare Saturday afternoon news conference, and it marks a shift from earlier this week, back when he said he wasn't considering a mandate. Now today he says the widespread failure to wear masks here in Louisiana leaves him with no other choice.
The appeal that we've been making to the people of Louisiana to do better abiding by those restrictions and doing better by complying with our mitigation measures just have not produced the results that we had hoped for and the results that we need.
Now, the governor's mandate does also limit bars to curbside pickup. This comes as it becomes more apparent that adults under the age of 30 are playing a larger role in the rise of new coronavirus cases here.
You go to a bar to socialize, and when you drink, you're not wearing a mask. And when you drink, you lose your inhibitions. And when you're listening to music, you have to speak louder to be heard. And you have to move closer to other people to hear them. And there's just nothing about that environment that is conducive to slowing the spread of COVID-19.
And even with this mandate in place, the governor is suggesting Louisiana's case count will not fall overnight. He says we won't likely know for weeks whether people are following his mandate well enough to see fewer positive tests.
We have no reason to believe that the numbers that we've been reporting over the last few days are going to get any better over the next couple of weeks. In fact, they are likely to get worse. That's the unfortunate reality, and that's why we are taking the action that we're taking today. And if you don't like the mask mandate, then don't like it. But wear your mask anyway if you're going to be out in public.
The governor saying the state fire marshal's office will be responsible for enforcing the mandate, which again takes effect at midnight tomorrow. Governor Edwards saying the state will not enforce this at places of worship. However, they do highly recommend it. Meanwhile, business owners that do not comply will face up to a $500 fine and 6 months in jail.
And right now, some parishes will be able to opt out of this mandate, but only if they meet certain case count thresholds.
Of course, Louisiana joins neighboring Texas and Mississippi, which have already issued mandates and are enforcing mask use at this point.
Meanwhile, tonight, Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome has this to say, quote, "The solutions are simple. Wear a mask, go get tested, avoid crowds, and avoid close contact with people outside your household or core support group. If we don't work together to move forward, we will be forced backwards," end of quote.
And New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell also released a statement on the governor's new mandate saying, quote, "I thank Governor Edwards for his leadership. None of this is easy and no one wants to go backwards, but public health and public safety must remain our top priority." Well, now to the latest COVID-19 numbers for Louisiana. These are the numbers that prompted the governor to issue the statewide mask mandate. According to the Department of Health, today was, as we mentioned, the second day in a row for the state to see an increase of more than 2,000 cases. The number of deaths also went up by more than 20.
And hospitalizations also on the rise. Today, LDH reporting 65 more people in the hospital with complications from the virus, and that brings the total close to 1,200. The number of people on ventilators here in Louisiana only down by 1 since yesterday. And taking a closer look at today's case numbers, almost all of the new cases were of community spread, and over 30% of those new cases, by the way, of people 29 years old or younger.
Also, the state has increased its testing. In just 24 hours, more than 19,000 tests were completed statewide, bringing the total number of tests so far to more than 900,000. Well, if you were watching, you may have noticed also at today's news conference, Dr. Catherine O'Neill from Our Lady of the Lake. She spoke about the drastic rise in the number of people hospitalized over the last 10 days.
We have quadrupled the number of patients in our own hospital, and we've seen similar numbers throughout the state. This massive increase in admissions was not expected. What we expected was to see a slow community spread because people were still socially distancing and masking, but that wasn't occurring, and now we are overwhelmed.
Now, Dr. O'Neill went on to say that 1/3 of the COVID-19 patients at Our Lady of the Lake are in the ICU. The youngest patient, a 25-year-old, she says, who had no prior health issues. Now, next week, we are expecting a visit from Vice President Mike Pence here in the capital city. The Vice President will travel to Baton Rouge on Tuesday and will meet with Governor John Bel Edwards to talk about our state's response to COVID-19. The VP will also be joining a roundtable discussion at Tiger Stadium to talk about school reopening plans and college sports. In a statement, Governor Edwards says he is looking forward to the Vice President's visit.
Well, some activists in Donaldsonville are raising awareness to what they call two viruses, racism and COVID-19. Tonight, NBC Local 33's Kara St. Cyr explains what those organizers hope to gain with the demonstration today.
Black Lives Matter!
This demonstration in Donaldsonville differs from what we've seen elsewhere. This one is twofold, against COVID-19 and institutionalized racism. The protesters walked only a short distance, but they hoped their message travels far.
We're talking about racism in the schools. We're talking about racism in health care. We're talking about racism in employment. We're talking about racism in every sphere of life here in America.
One of the organizers, Glenn Price, says it's the public's job to take control of the community when all else fails.
Sitting there talking to her about what Donaldsonville has lost.
And he says all else has failed. That's why he put this march together, to solve the problems in Donaldsonville's backyard.
We need new leadership in Donaldsonville. Most of our city officials, councilmen, and the mayor have all been in office 15 to 20 years plus. And I think they've lost their vision. I don't think they have a clear vision for the city.
When the march ended, organizers called for change in leadership. No surprise, Glenn Price was one of the loudest. After election season ends, he hopes to be Donaldsonville's mayor. But until it comes time to cast that vote, he says he'll stay a part of the community doing this.
Get up and go do something.
Participants like Michael McKinney say public demonstrations like this one are the best route to take when it comes to bringing awareness.
It's a very, very positive thing because of the fact that this needs to happen in Donaldsonville. I mean, it's the first time it ever happened, so it needs to happen.
But whatever side of history Donaldsonville lands on, McKinney and Price say this is just the beginning. Kara St. Cyr, NBC, Local 33 News.
And with that, organizers at today's event in Donaldsonville say there will be more events like these to come, with changes they hope in the near future.
Well, tonight, Louisiana State Police are investigating a deadly crash that happened in Pointe-Coupee Parish. That crash claimed the life of 62-year-old Cheryl Bryan of Jonesville. Officials say it happened on LA Highway 418 just after 1:30 this morning. We're told Byron was headed north on the highway when her SUV ran off the road and flipped. Troopers say Bryan, that is, was not wearing a seatbelt and sadly died at the scene. The cause of the crash remains under investigation tonight.
Well, Louisiana's presidential primary may be wrapping up tonight. Those polls are now officially closed, but a lawsuit from the state's Democratic leaders has only begun. They're suing Louisiana's elections chief Republican Secretary of State Kyle Ordway. That was an announcement coming hours ago in a virtual news conference, and the Democrats say they're not pleased with reports of voters not getting mail-in ballots in time or at all amid a pandemic that's keeping many folks home.
And it's just unacceptable for our Secretary of State to continue to pass the buck. If he didn't want the job, he shouldn't have run for it. We have known, we have warned, we have asked nicely several times, and every iteration of questions is someone else's fault.
Now, full details on the legislators' lawsuit are set to be announced at some point in the near future. And at some point in the near future, we will also be telling you about the New Orleans Pelicans and their star rookie Zion Williamson has transformed his body and game during this NBA hiatus.
And the latest on Tropical Storm Faye as it makes landfall along the East Coast. Details next on NBC Local 33 News at 10. United Airlines has a tentative cost-cutting deal with the pilots union tonight. The airlines and the union that represents about 13,000 United pilots have reached a tentative agreement for voluntary furloughs and early retirement packages. Exact details of that deal have not been released at this point. It is, however, the airline's latest effort to slash costs as the coronavirus pandemic devastates travel demand. The deal does still need to be ratified by union leaders sometime next week.